At the cusp of dawn, where the first light of a frigid morning barely pierced the fog, James Carter stirred from a restless slumber in his cramped rented room. The insistent clamor of a doorbell, mingled with heavy knocks that seemed to shake the very walls, jolted him awake. His breath fogged in the chilly air as he clung to the thin blanket, reluctant to abandon its meager warmth. Then, a memory surfaced. He'd arranged for a rickshaw driver to arrive early to transport his belongings to the harbor, where a ship bound for New York awaited. Groaning, he stumbled out of bed, his bare feet recoiling from the cold wooden floor. He fumbled with the door's latch, and a gust of icy wind swept in, clawing at his skin as if to freeze his very bones. Stamping his feet to ward off the chill, he watched his breath dissolve into wispy clouds in the dim light. The rickshaw driver, a weathered man in his 50s named Thomas, greeted him with a tip of his tattered cap. His face, etched with the lines of a hard life, lit up with an unexpected warmth. "Morning, Mr. Carter. This your place, right?" "Morning," James mumbled, forcing a smile despite the fog of sleep clouding his mind. His worn suitcases, a battered wooden trunk, and a scuffed leather satchel were quickly loaded onto the rickshaw. James splashed cold water on his face, pulled on a heavy woolen coat, and stepped into the silent street. The biting wind tugged at his collar, forcing him to bury his nose in the fabric for warmth. The town lay hushed, its cobblestone streets slick with dew. A milk delivery cart rattled past, its wheels crunching against the damp road. At the alley's end, an older woman in a threadbare sweater emptied a trash bin, her movements slow and deliberate, her silhouette fading into the morning mist. This desolate scene was all too familiar to James, a wanderer without roots, a man adrift in a world that never felt like home. He'd roamed countless cities, slept in countless strangers' rooms, yet nowhere anchored him. The wet, cold streets mirrored his soul, restless, searching for something he couldn't name. Was a purpose, love, or merely an escape from the hollow ache within? His life was a tapestry of endless journeys, each step blending joy and sorrow like the fog that clung to the dawn. A ship's horn shattered the stillness, yanking James back to reality. The harbor buzzed with activity, carts laden with goods, vendors hawking pastries, and the chatter of passengers rising like waves. His luggage was loaded onto the ship, and James chose a seat near the deck, where he could observe his fellow travelers, strangers bound together by this voyage. Their eyes darted suspiciously, guarding pockets and secrets alike. No one spoke, no one yielded space. As the ship filled, clusters of passengers crowded the deck, each carrying their own stories, their own burdens, hidden behind guarded expressions. James settled into his thoughts, the weight of his life pressing against him. He'd never been one for permanence. A house, a steady job, a family. These were dreams for others, not for a man like him. He thrived on movement, on the freedom of a packed bag and an open road. Yet what was he chasing? A reason to stay? A heart to claim? Or was he simply fleeing the man he'd become? He shook his head, trying to dispel the melancholy, but it clung to him like the morning's chill. A voice, clear and melodic as a silver bell, pierced his reverie. "Father!" James's heart leapt, the sound stirring something deep within him, a longing he hadn't known he carried. He spun around, searching for the source of that enchanting voice, but found only strangers. To his right, a heavy-set woman crunched peanuts, her gold-flecked teeth gleaming. Not her. To his left, a thin girl with a shrill voice complained about the cold. Definitely not her. Could it be the young girl near the cabin, her cheeks flushed, her eyes lost in a distant dream? Curiosity ignited. James rose and wandered the deck, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Schoolboys laughed about their upcoming vacation. A stern matron glared, as if to discipline the air itself. Women whispered in a corner, and men roared with laughter at a crude joke. None matched the voice that haunted him. Where was she? A newsboy darted past, his voice cutting through the din. Papers. Fresh papers. Then, the voice returned, soft yet insistent, as if whispered in his ear. "Sir, you're stepping on my coat." James froze, realizing his foot rested on the hem of a woman's long coat. His face flushed as he stepped back, stammering apologies. I'm so sorry, miss. I didn't mean to. He bent lower, hoping to glimpse her face, but a sheer black veil, draped from an elegant hat, obscured her features. Only her crimson lips and pale chin were visible, framed by the delicate fabric. She nodded gracefully, her movements refined yet distant. Before James could speak again, an elderly man approached, his aristocratic bearing unmistakable. "Eleanor, everything's ready. Let's head to the cabin," he said, his voice warm but tinged with scrutiny. His sharp eyes flicked to James, as if sizing up an intruder. Eleanor took the man's arm, and they walked away, leaving James alone on the deck. The ship groaned to life, its engines rumbling, chains clanking as the anchor rose. The passengers' chatter faded, replaced by the tense hum of anticipation. But James's mind was elsewhere, ensnared by Eleanor's voice, a siren's call that stirred a strange intoxication. He had to find her, to uncover the face behind the veil, to unravel the story behind that voice. He roamed the ship tirelessly, from the bow to the stern, through narrow corridors and crowded dining halls. At last, he spotted Eleanor and the elderly man by the railing, the sea breeze tugging at her veil. Her steps were slow, almost fragile, as if her slender frame struggled to bear its own weight. Was she ill? Disabled? The thought only deepened James's fascination, stirring a protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. In that moment, he felt it, a love so sudden, so overwhelming, it consumed him. He imagined mornings with her, sharing coffee in a sunlit kitchen, her voice weaving stories that filled the silence. He, a hardened drifter who scoffed at sentiment, now yearned for a woman he barely knew. Her veiled face became a canvas for his dreams, her voice the melody of a life he'd never dared to want. The ship docked at Burlington by noon, its horn blaring through the salty air. Passengers scrambled to disembark, their voices a chaotic symphony. James lingered near Eleanor, pretending to adjust his luggage, but straining to catch her words. "This is where we part," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The elderly man sighed. "I'm sorry, Eleanor. Business in New York can't wait. Stay with your friends here. I'll return soon." He guided her toward the gangway, casting a wary glance at James. As Eleanor passed, her veil brushed his shoulder, sending a jolt through him. From their conversation, he learned she'd remain in Burlington, a quaint coastal town with red-roofed cottages and blooming gardens. James made a snap decision. "I'm staying too," he muttered to himself. "If she's here, why go on?" He gathered his belongings and disembarked, choosing a rickshaw that, by chance, also carried Eleanor's luggage. As the ship sailed away, Eleanor stood at the dock, waving to her father, her silhouette shrinking against the horizon. Dusk settled over Burlington, the whispering pines and briny sea air enveloping the town. Eleanor's home was a charming cottage in a quiet alley, its white picket fence and vibrant flower beds a stark contrast to the shadowy street. She directed the driver to place her luggage at the gate, then stood still, as if waiting for something, or someone. James instructed his driver to take his bags to a nearby inn, but lingered, his heart pounding. This was his chance. Steeling himself, he approached her. "Hello, I'm James," he said, his voice unsteady. "Funny, running into you again." Eleanor remained silent, her veiled face unreadable. The darkness deepened, fog blurring the streetlights. Suddenly, she stepped closer, a soft giggle escaping her lips. Slowly, she raised her hands and lifted the veil. James's breath caught, anticipation flooding his senses. But as the dim light revealed her face, horror seized him. Beneath the veil was not a young woman, but an ancient crone, her wrinkled face etched with time, her cloudy eyes glinting with malice. Her crooked smile revealed yellowed teeth, and a foul, decaying odor hit him like a wave. James staggered back, his skin prickling, sweat beading on his brow. Her laughter, sharp and mocking, cut through the night. "A wanderer, are you? Mistaking a 70-year-old hag for a 16-year-old maiden." He turned and ran, her cackle chasing him through the fog, mingling with the howling wind. He didn't stop until he reached the inn, his heart racing, his mind reeling. Had he been deceived by his own desperation, Or was there something unearthly about Eleanor? That night, sleep eluded him. Her laughter echoed in his mind, a relentless curse. He questioned everything, his loneliness, his yearning, the voice that had ensnared him. Had his isolation woven a fantasy so vivid he'd mistaken a stranger for a soulmate? The next morning, driven by a need for answers, James visited a harborside cafe where locals swapped tales. An old man with silver hair and keen eyes shared a chilling legend. "They call her Eleanor, the siren of the sea," he whispered. "Decades ago, a young woman drowned when her ship sank off this coast. Her spirit lingers, her voice luring travelers into dreams of love, only to trap them in her sorrow." James shivered, torn between skepticism and dread. Back at the inn, he found a slip of paper under his door, scrawled with delicate, trembling handwriting. "Meet me on the next ship, wanderer." His heart raced. Was it a prank, a delusion, or a summons from beyond? Each time a ship's horn sounded, a strange longing stirred within him. To board another vessel, to seek Eleanor again, whether she was a ghost, a trickster, or the key to the home he'd never found.